Alright, I would like to start this video off with my immense gratitude for the many excellent questions you guys gave me in a short amount of time. And I would also like to thank my newfound Patreon contributors as well as those who have been patrons for a longer time. I really, really appreciate it, and I'm going to keep churning out videos as much as I can. Plus, I enjoy doing them. Side note, I really hate the word content. It's just been ruined for me. It's not rational at all. It just drives me nuts. Anyway, we will get started on these questions right away to the dulcet tunes of this excellent Pyrite Town remix on loop. So, this first question by Smogan's very own We Three Kings, opinion on Blue. This is an opportunity for me to plug something I am going to start doing in the future, near future, I hope. My buddy Roscoe gave me the idea of a Throwback Thursday kind of thing because people have asked me to go over competitive Pokemon history. I haven't been around since the beginning by a long shot, but I've been around for a while now, and I have a great memory, and I know it, and I like to ramble, so this first question is a great preview of what that'll most likely be like. So, this question also makes me feel really old indirectly because there are a lot of players on Smogon now who really have no idea who Blue is, or at least what Blue is notorious for. So, Blue was a top player from 2011 when he won the Smogon Frontier until 2015 when some events happened. He was number one or number two, depending on how you looked at it, alongside McMegan. Just started dominating in Gen 5 and really blossomed in Gen 6 and XY. Was all over every tournament, making it really far in Smogon Tour season after season. Just one of the best players for sure. And then in 2015, for the official Smogon tournament, then there was a player named Style who was just kicking the shit out of everyone. It was like a brand new player, allegedly a girl, which also helped because a lot of younger, less experienced people on Smogon are more likely to get bullshitted by a girl who can convince them of anything. I used to be that way too, but that's a different story. And yeah, so Style was just 6-0ing established players left and right. And I was among them in round 4, I think. And it was getting suspicious because this brand new player who just was kicking the crap out of absolutely everyone. Crash and Boom Banger CBB was another victim in round 2. And just, it was suspicious because it wasn't just constant 6-0s, which is already ridiculous, but like every single move set was perfect for that particular matchup, and the moves were just, there's a whole thread. Just go to the Smogon tournament section and look up the official Smogon tournament and go to the finals thread of 2015. It's a great popcorn read. It's really long. Anyway, so long story short, Blue was Style and on an alt, and was getting the teams and moves of Style's opponents so that Style could defeat them easily. And it was the biggest cheating ever done on Smogon by, well, it used to be. Mazar's bot that stole people's teams 2 years later it's up there, but this was pretty astounding, especially because Blue was very well regarded in the community as an administrator and tournament director, as well as just a generally respected presence for being a well-mannered, good battler. So everyone was like, oh no, this can't possibly be Blue, which made it easier to pull off. So you might be wondering why. Why would Blue do something like this? And again, if you want to read it straight from the horse's mouth, then Blue wrote up a paste bin, which I think is in the thread or on Blue's profile or something like that. Yeah, so it's around. If anyone wants to post it in the comments, who can find it easily, then that would be nice too. Anyway, so Blue, to summarize why Blue did it, it was because of the pressure of being seen as a top player and how it could be very unfun with feeling the need to keep winning and winning more trophies and achieving more and more, and just wanted a fresh start. And I can definitely sympathize with the idea of the pressure in tournaments at a certain level being really, really difficult to deal with. It's not easy. Of course, I don't condone what was done at all, but yeah. So, in short, Blue was an amazing player. There's no doubt about that. But this and some other rumors cast aspersions on everything Blue had ever achieved. Like, there were rumors as far back as the original Smogon Frontier that of free wins and things like that. So, yeah, Blue was permanently banned, and yeah, because that's really something you can't forgive, because it was such a level of rigging from a really high position of power, which is just unacceptable. So, but I get it. You know, isn't that what we do with all our favorite villains, or most of them? Yeah, and Blue was a great person, and to hang around with. Of course, this level of manipulation kind of makes you think. I don't know how much of that was genuine and how much was just being used to an end, but you know, I remember Blue always being fun to talk with. Oh, and the last thing that personally, this was a little over the line for me. That when the walls were closing in on Blue with the investigation, and people were starting to doubt Blue, then Blue revealed him or herself to really be a girl all along. And I don't know if it's true or not. I've heard both ways. But the timing of that was just... I just thought it was incredibly manipulative, because suddenly exactly what you would expect to happen happened, and everyone was defending Blue for, oh, come on, it's not so bad. It's hard to be a girl on the internet, and you know, I'm not disputing that. The reasons for hiding being a girl was that, you know, girls get razzed just for being girls on the internet, which, you know, is true. Guys can be shitty. But the timing of that gender reveal was very clearly manipulative, and it got the court of public opinion to shift for sure. Anyway, yeah, it's been a while, so I don't really begrudge Blue for it anymore. And I always remembered Blue as a good person and a great battler, but it's hard to look past that. But no, I don't really begrudge it. It's been 5 years, so. Alright, next comment. Cool video, dude. Thank you. Thank you very much. Joel Martinez, you ready for False Swipe? That's badass. I never thought of it that way, but thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. That's awesome. Okay, top 3 favorite Pokemon overall. Okay, first, it's been a while, and I could go over this for a while. I have a lot of favorite Pokemon. I tend to form many, many attachments when I'm playing through the actual games. Or at least I used to. Haven't really been into Gen 8. I don't have a Switch, or I haven't played any of those games, so I'm not really attached to any of the Pokemon besides what I've seen in the competitive metagame, and nothing really is... I mean, there's some cool designs, just nothing I feel really attached to. But top 3 favorite overall... When I was a kid, then Salamence was number 1. I think it still has to be. Just because it's the epitome of the cool dragon. It is the coolest by far. It's just... Because Dragonite, I mean, it's a dragon, but it's also, you know, happy and joyful. And Salamence is just pure badassery. Which, for me as a 7 or 8-year-old kid, was a big deal. I remember facing Drake in the Sapphire Elite Four, and I was just barely hanging on because I was a kid, so of course I was soloing everything with my starter, that being Swampert. And I was just barely hanging on through his Shelgon, his two Flygons, and his Altaria, and then his last, this big bad Salamence came out, and I was just like, oh my god, that's the greatest thing ever. So of course, after that, then I went to Meteor Falls, and I got myself a Bagon, and I trained it to be a Salamence, and it was my first ever level 100. So I have a lot of attachment to Salamence. Others, there are a lot of others. Like any normal kid, I was a huge fan of Charizard. It was the first Pokemon I ever saw in that kid's guidebook in kindergarten at the age of 6. So I was a huge fan of Charizard. Who wasn't, right? Lately, Charizard's kind of been soured for me with how it keeps getting this special attention from just getting 2 Megas and then the Dynamax stuff. And the thing that really rubbed me the wrong way, probably pushed it over the edge, was the champion of Gen 8 where all the Pokemon were cut to make room for new Pokemon, and then the champion's signature Pokemon is a Charizard. Are you kidding me? That really upset me. So it's like they're doing everything possible to ruin Charizard for me. But yeah, I still love Charizard. And number 3, that's tough. I have a lot of favorites. I'll try to come up with something more unique, because, everyone can just list starters or badass dragon types. I gotta say, I've always been a fan of Floatzel. I think Floatzel is really, really awesome. I like a lot of Gen 4 pokes. Almost all of them. Like, I would consider among some of my favorites, but Floatzel, I think, is really... I wish it was better competitively, because it's just so cool. Yeah, there are more, I'm sure, but top 3, so. Have I watched any anime? I am not into anime. It just doesn't tick any boxes for me. I respect it as an art form completely. I'm not like one of those people who goes, oh, all anime is for degenerates. That's obviously ridiculous. Generally going all X is for Y group of people is wrong, so. It just isn't something I really like. I've given it tries, but it's never been something I've been tempted to get into. I have seen a few, though. When I was 13, then I was really into Death Note. I read Death Note first because my English teacher at the time was telling us about it, and I was instantly captivated. So, of course, I watched it, and I think Death Note is very good. I know that's like a beginner anime opinion. It's like, Death Note. But I like it. Not in terms of standing up to other anime, but as a work on its own by measures I can... by metrics I can use to measure its worth, I think Death Note is really good. And then, of course, I got into Bleach like any other 13-year-old male, because it's badass, right? Although that one has aged worse for me. But I was a big fan of Bleach for a while. Had my token Japanese culture phase, although that one has... my appreciation for Japanese culture hasn't gone, it's just changed to other stuff. I've seen a couple others. About 6 years ago, then, I watched the first season of Darker Than Black with a couple friends, and I liked it. It was good. And then I watched... I can't remember the name of it. With a friend about a year and a half ago. I watched a series about... I forget what it's called, but this guy is a gambler, and he gets locked on a ship with a bunch of other guys who are all gambling to survive and shit like that. I forget the name of it. It's been a while, but I thought that one was good too. It's just not something I'm... The art form generally isn't something I go crazy for. But then again, I also don't go crazy for paintings, so... Why is Jenny OU so terrible? I want to refrain from giving any strong opinions because I really don't like it when people who don't play the tier, or at least don't understand the tier, give criticisms about it. This drives me nuts when people go, oh, DPP is bad because it's all lead matchup, and you need team preview because the threats are so strong, and Jirachi, Clefable, Dugtrio, Infernape, Breloom is busted, Machamp is busted, stuff like that. Because it's very evident that they're speaking from a limited amount of knowledge regarding the tier. And so, I could also go into any tier right now that I don't play and go like, what this Pokemon is clearly so broken. This tier is bullshit. So I don't want to say anything definitive about Sword and Shield OU. I hear a lot of complaints about it, but I don't have enough of an opinion to really follow it. I don't even watch the Sword and Shield tournament games because it just doesn't interest me as a tier, which I guess speaks for itself. It's just not that captivating to watch. Yeah, I think it's just the limited pool of Pokemon. In theory, I like the idea because I think sometimes there are too many threats and all the other things people say when talking about the latest gen. Too many threats, too hard to deal with, yada yada. So cutting down the pool of available Pokemon is in theory a good idea, but I'm not sure they... And other stuff like Hidden Power. Hidden Power is a vestige of randomness, but I don't know. I don't know if they kept the right Pokemon because they had a perfect excuse to leave out clearly ridiculous Pokemon like Toxapex, and they just kept them in. So the overpowered, or not overpowered, but incredibly restrictive stuff is still around, and the tools to deal with that restrictive stuff lessened. Clefable is ridiculous now with Teleport and whatnot. So I don't know. I haven't even followed anything about Melmetal, so I don't know why it's terrible, but I guess that's my answer. The really, really oppressive Pokemon are still in, and the tools to deal with them have gone. At least Dugtrio's gone. Dugtrio is just the worst. Best Czechian metal band. First of all, I really hate the term Czechia. I know that's technically what the Czech Republic is now, but I don't like it. And this was already answered for me in a comment, Master's Hammer. I really love Master's Hammer. I actually own their debut album, Ritual, and I am something of a metal connoisseur, so I can talk all day about why I love them. But they have been called the first Norwegian black metal band, even though they're not Norwegian, because what people think about when they think black metal are the Norwegian bands from the early 90s who had a very distinct, cold style, and a lot of their traits that are such signifiers of the genre, like when you listen to classic albums like Darkthrone's Transylvanian Hunger, then you hear a lot of, or Burzum's more bombastic parts, let's say, or Emperor, especially Emperor with their more symphonic approach. All those albums and more, they drew a ton from Master's Hammer's debut album, Ritual. So I would really recommend that one. Yeah, they also have some great demos from when they were playing in communist Czechoslovakia in the 80s, illegally hiding from the secret police. It's incredible stuff. But just on their own merits, it's incredible. It's, they're the perfect mix of more eclectic elements without really letting up on the savagery. And when they go for more, I don't know if artistic is the right word, but again, bombastic elements, then they don't get stuck up their own ass and trying to do too much. They never ease up on the metal, per se, because that is at its core what its main strength is. They use other elements to strengthen the metal, as opposed to more gimmicky symphonic metal bands who may as well just ditch the metal altogether, because I think the symphonic elements in a metal band, if you're going too far with the symphonic elements, then the traditional metal guitar and drums are just getting in the way. So I think Master's Hammer is incredible at that, just finding that balance. Anyway, I've rambled enough. Master's Hammer is great. Another great Czech black metal band from around the same period is Root. I really, really like a couple of their albums, and the early stuff especially. I forget it's been a while since I've listened, but they have this I think their second album, the first album is all in Czech, and I like that one a lot. And their second album is or maybe it's the third, but it's the concept album about Satan. They have this one incredible track on it that's just, it's a ritual. It feels like a ritual of literally summoning the devil, and the vocalist is just does an incredible job. So Root is also really good. There are a couple others like Assessor from the 80s who only released like some demos, but I really like them. Cult of Fire is a more modern one. They have a really interesting aesthetic. I think they're good. Trist, if you're into depressive black metal, then nothing will do the job more than that. That's just tinny pain. That's not regular listening for me anymore, but they're good. And I know I'm forgetting a really big one. Arcane, they're not like pure metal. They're more of like a heavy metal hard rock hybrid, but I think they're really good. They sing in Czech, and they're excellent. And I'm gonna call it there before I go on too long. But those guys are really good. Czechs make really good metal, in general. So, moving on. What's your favorite Mon? Salamence? Yeah, Salamence. Pokemon in your family? Thank you. Thank you very much. Which fact is more amazing? Dogs always shit facing north, or there's a species of crayfish which clones itself instead of reproducing with the crayfish of the opposite gender? Huh. I gotta go with the dogs shitting facing north thing. Because the clone aspect doesn't strike me as that unique necessarily. Well, I guess for non-people, what else clones itself, so. But the dog's shit-facing north thing is kind of amazing. I guess if you're ever lost in a post-apocalyptic world and you need a compass, then make sure you have a dog with you, and when he takes a shit, you'll know where you are. Alright, before we get on to these next questions, I gotta make one of my classic bathroom breaks, so enjoy Pyrite Town. Alright, intermission over. I wonder if anyone's figured out my evil plan of drinking plenty of water and staying hydrated just so I have to go to the bathroom during my recordings of lengthy videos. Just so I can squeeze an extra 20, 30 seconds, maybe a minute, into that of sweet, sweet ad revenue. Probably getting me 1/1000th of a cent. Anyway, I don't know how the YouTube paying algorithm thing works. I've read many things. But for anyone who was wondering, this is not my job. I don't make very much. But it's fun. So that's the main idea. And there are other benefits, of course. Such as all the groupies. Pokemon YouTube stars are just rolling in it. Anyway, this is a great question because it's many questions. Favorite movies? Ooh boy, I'm very glad this question was asked. The music and movies stuff I relish just as much as the Pokemon stuff. So my favorite movies, I have a very particular top 5. Number 1, Logan. Amazing. Tears every time. I'm not going to go into a full-on movie review, but Logan is my number 1. Number 2, Pulp Fiction. That was my number 1 for many years. Number 3, American Beauty. I love that one. Number 4, Clerks. Clerks, I would say, is one of the most affecting films of my young adulthood. And number 5, The Incredibles. For anyone who thinks, isn't that a kid's movie? It is not a kid's movie. I mean, you can watch it with kids. It's great for kids. And I loved it as a kid. I used to watch it over and over and over and over. But it is... I appreciate it more as an adult. And it's wondrous. Pixar's best. So then I have a lot of other favorites. If you want to see more, then I have a Rate Your Music page, and my name on there is just BKC, so you can just look that up. But some of my other favorites, I would say, are Whiplash, incredibly intense stuff. I try to say two at once. Children of Men, which is the forerunner for Logan, does a lot of great things. Prisoners, I'm really, really a big fan of that one. There's Hugh Jackman again, but Jake Gyllenhaal is just incredible. And I'm a fan of Denis Villeneuve in general. Mary Poppins is up there. I know, kids movie, but it is 2 hours of pure joy. I remember watching it for the first time as an adult after having not seen it for a while, and I just can't remember enjoying myself for 2 consecutive hours more. I was on a plane, and it whizzed by. It was so perfect. I really, really, again, appreciate it more as an adult. Let's see, what else is there? This is not every movie I've seen, just my absolute favorites, but I do have a lot of absolute favorites. I'm a big fan of Battle Royale, the Japanese Hunger Games, as some might know it. That's a really good one. I'm blanking a little, but I'm also really... In terms of the Marvel MCU movies, I think most of them are kind of disposable, kind of whatever. They're nice and pleasant, but whatever. But I do think Captain America, the Winter Soldier, is just unbelievably good. I really, really love that movie. It is head and shoulders above its counterparts. Even Infinity War, which I think is the best of the other MCU movies. Flaws it has, but it's still really good. But I think Winter Soldier is not even in the same ballpark. It's so good. And yeah, I think those are the biggest ones. Yeah, so there's other stuff, but you can look that up yourself. Oh, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. I love that movie. I can't fathom hating that movie. It's so silly and it's so wonderful in every way. I'm generally a big Edgar Wright fan. Like Hot Fuzz is tremendous. It's absolutely tremendous, and I really like Baby Driver too. It's a step down, but still excellent. But those two, especially Scott Pilgrim, absolutely delightful. All right, moving on. Favorite tournament matches you've played? Oh boy. It's really hard to say. This is a really hard question to answer, and I might even come back to it because I'm going to have to look it up. But it's hard to pick because I've played in a lot of tournaments from a lot of years, and not all. And since I'm a dinosaur, then I used to play before we played on Showdown with replays. So there are a lot of them from there. Favorite matches you played? God, that's really tough. Because I remember like old Wi-Fi battles from like 2010 and 2011. Like this one game I had against my buddy Cheese by Myself, or Cracker of Cheese, or however you know him. This incredible Wi-Fi battle where it was just back and forth, and he got me and I got him, and it was just gonna go right down to the wire, and Nintendo Wi-Fi connection DC'd. It was lost forever. It really was anyone's game. We were both so mad that it got DC'd. So, that one's one of my favorites, but no one can ever see that. It just exists in my head now. But tournament matches, I'm going to come back to this, and this is going to be a fairly egotistical exercise, so please forgive me. But I do want to go get into it. Yeah, favorite and least favorite Pokemon games you've played? I assume this means the actual handheld Pokemon games. So I will give you my top 3, my holy pantheon of Pokemon games. Pokemon Crystal, I love the second generation. It like almost physically transports me back to the early 2000s when I was very young and playing those games. Pokemon Coliseum, hint hint. I remember getting the guidebook before I even got the game, and I was just smitten. I was like, oh my god, this is such a departure. You're not a 10-year-old kid. You're like pretty much an adult, and you're formerly one of the bad guys, and you have to steal Pokemon, and there are no wild Pokemon. Oh my god, it's amazing, and I really really like it. I liked XD too, but while most people prefer the more colorful, vibrant palette of XD, then I generally prefer the minimalistic grittiness of Coliseum. In terms of least favorite, XY was very forgettable to me. But other than that, I really liked every single generation of Pokemon. I forgot my top three and number three. Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time and Darkness. I loved that game. I generally like the Mystery Dungeon stuff. I also think it's a great, great spin-off. But, I loved those in particular. It was perfect. It was Gen 4 and everything was perfect. Beautiful game. I also liked other stuff like Pokemon Ranger, yeah. I wasn't as crazy about that one. Favorite Pokemon to use in each tier you frequent. Alright, well, I play the first 6 generations of OU frequently, so... Alright, I'm gonna stay away from the easy answer of, well, in advance, my favorite Pokemon is Tyranitar. Because that's just, wow, you like to use the best Pokemon. What an interesting personality trait. But yeah, I mean, obviously I like to use the best Pokemon because you use the best Pokemon to win, so I'll try to be a little more creative. In RBY, I really like Rhydon because a lot of people just see it as that thing you run to stop Zapdos from destroying you. And that is obviously a great perk, but I think Rhydon is really threatening even on its own. And this is not a particularly unique observation among RBY players. I mean, real RBY players are like, yeah, Rhydons are really good. But for those less experienced, then Rhydon is really nasty because he gets in on paralyzed Pokemon with low or lower defense stats, and he threatens them really hard. And the one true check to him is Exeggutor. And even Exeggutor doesn't like Rock Slides and Body Slam paralysis, so Rhydon can make things really uncomfortable for the opponent if it's used aggressively. And of course, being able to Stonewall Zapdos is great. And I mean, Golem's not bad, I don't think, just because Explosion is potentially a really nice tool. But I definitely am a fan of Rhydon because it just smacks everything. As for lesser used OU Pokemon, or non-OU Pokemon, I liked Clefable in RBY. It has a really interesting set of moves. GSC, the obvious choices of Snorlax and the Electrics. Again, I'm going to try and branch out a little. I've always loved Golem, and matter of fact, if I can brag a little, I was the first person to use Roar Rapid Spin Golem in GSC about 3 years ago. And sorry for the egotism, but since then it has become one of the best Pokemon in the metagame, and I was really proud of that, especially considering I was just really getting into GSC then, so I really like Golem. Other than that, I think Machamp is one of the strongest Pokemon in GSC, and it's really hard to just plug in and win with it. Because it has a lot of natural issues as being slow and getting exploded on, and Zapdos and Eggy and Jinx and whatnot. But a well-played Machamp is really, really dangerous, and it has such cool options like Light Screen that really help a team out. So I think well-played Machamp is definitely one of my favorite Pokemon, alongside Golem as well. And there are other cool pokes, like Belly Drum Charizard. What a threat. I'm a big fan of that one. I have some great memories with using Belly Drum Charizard and breaking really tough stall teams. But yeah, so those three, I guess, and Charizard's definitely the coolest. I'm also a fan of Swords Dance Tentacruel in Gen 2. This reminds me of, I remember when I was not as well acquainted with as many tiers, and it would be fascinating to me to hear about these Pokemon that, in my current generation, are not so good, but in earlier gens, they're not only being used, but they're being used with these weird sounding sets. Like, for example, when I was coming up during Gen 4 and 5, then, Tentacruel had a small niche in DPP and was really good in Black and White, but before that it was garbage, right? Turns out, no, people run Swords Dance on it in Gen 2, and Gen 3 UU, so it's really cool to hear that. You hear a lot of Choice Band Tyranitar thrown around, but then you go to Advanced UU and you hear Choice Band Kangaskhan, Choice Band Nidoking, and Choice Band Primeape, so I always thought that was really cool. Gen 3, there are a lot of Pokemon. I am a big fan of any fire type. The fire types are all really cool. And generally, I'm a fan of Celebi. I think Celebi is incredibly diverse and does a lot of incredibly good things. And and Zapdos. I really love Zapdos. He's strong, he's fast, he's bulky, he does it all. He's diverse in his sets. Love me some Zapdos. Any particular Pokemon music tracks that you like a lot? A lot of them. The entire GSC soundtrack. It's perfect. But in particular, I forget what routes exactly it is. I think it's 41, 42, 44. But it's the same one that plays at Lake of Rage. That is the peak of Pokemon music. It does not get any more beautiful than that. Various champion themes, of course. Like the champion theme from Gen 2, 3, and 4, I think are varying levels of perfect as well. In Gen 3, I was addicted to the Gen 3 champion theme. And the Gen 2 one is obviously the most epic thing ever. And the Gen 4 one is incredible. In general, I really like the Pokemon soundtracks. I also forget what the name of the location is from Sun and Moon or Ultra Sun and Moon, but I think it's the island near the end of the game. Pony Island, I think? And the one at night is just the most serene thing you ever heard. But I'm a big fan of most of the Pokemon soundtracks. I think every gen has... 6 I think was the most forgettable gen in-game, in general, X and Y and Oris alike. But other than that, I really like most of the Pokemon music. So, those are some specific examples. I could be here all day listing every single one I like the Pokemon Mansion from RBY. I'll try to do one for every gen. Pokemon Mansion and RBY. Gen 2, you already know, the route theme, the champion theme. And just every theme, Jesus Christ. It's such a nostalgia attack. Gen 3, besides the champion theme, the Aqua Magma Hideout theme is really great. The Mount Pyre theme is tremendous. Most of the city themes are really good. The route in between Falarbor Town and what's the other one you come from? Mauville, yeah. Just the cave themes and the Groudon Kyogre battle and tremendous. Gen 4, oh my god, I'm gonna be here all day. What do I prefer from that one? I hate to say everything, I really do. Jubilife City is amazing. Jubilife City is great, and you know what? And I have to mention the Coliseum soundtrack too. Like this theme, of course, and the battle themes, especially the regular channel battle theme and the Cypher Peon battle theme and the Under. Oh my god, that's Gen 3 still too. Oh, and there's the Mystery Dungeon soundtrack, which is perfect too. I gotta stop there, otherwise I'll keep going, but I really love those games' music as well. Platooing DPP player feels near impossible to feel out everything the meta to throw at me. Yeah, I know the feeling. The ladder can be... one game you'll be facing a top player using a top team, and then you're facing some hard-to-distinguish junk, and it's really hard to unblur the line between the two. So my recommendation is to go to the tournament forums, so Classic and SPL and World Cup, and just watch the replays from the tournament players, because that is a much better example of the DPP metagame. I would also recommend that you go to the Ruins of Alph forum and read the DPP viability rankings. I update them myself, and there are plenty of people discussing them, so that will help you more. Don't rely entirely on the ladder. It's a great place to practice, but I would recommend the sources I just listed as better places. And I will do a DPP guide, a fuller one, in the future. I just don't have a time frame on that yet. Anyway, that was Great set of questions, thank you. So, in your honest opinion, is Pokemon as a franchise going in the right direction? No, I don't think so at all. I think the hand holding and the constant dumbing down of games be more palatable to children, like really small children, is just it's too much. I don't have a problem with it being colorful, but I think the subject matter and just general tone of the games is breaching a little too much on the infantile. Whereas I'm not saying the original games were, gore fests or particularly dark, but at the same time, there's a notable difference between the level of general subject matter and general NPC dialogue and the more easygoing games of today. X and Y were particularly the biggest complaint in this regard. I thought Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon were great, but in general, with the whole Pokemon Go thing and the more mobile direct centered approach, I didn't care for it. Like, Red and Blue are straight up set up in post-World War II Japan. Look it up if you're not familiar with it. But so it's not like kids can't handle this stuff. I mean, it's not like it's explicitly like, oh, this is in the aftermath of World War II, but there's mentions of soldiers and wars. I mean, Lieutenant Surge says his Pokemon zapped others during the war, and kids were fine. So I think a return to, or even possibly going more in that direction. The original generations have grown up, and I think aiming it at least a little more towards them it would be preferred, rather than this constant nostalgia bait, this cheap, hey, remember your favorites from 20 years ago? I hate it. I hate the overt focus on Gen 1 Pokemon and everything. Like, for Ultra Sun and Moon, wouldn't it have been great to make Alolan forms for Gen 2? No, they just wanted to... It really upsets me just how much it's not even all the Gen 1 Pokemon either. It's the cool ones you remember from Ash. It's Charizard, Snorlax, Eevee, Pikachu, Meowth. There's like a Gigantamax Meowth. And then sometimes they'll throw in like even Lapras or Butterfree. And I think it's really upsetting how they just keep cashing in on Gen 1. With the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee thing, like... Yeah. So I think that's disappointing. Hint, hint, maybe there's someone working on something about that. Who knows? Yeah, so I'm not a fan of how they handle this Gen 8 thing either. The whole graphics thing. I mean, look, I'm not a graphics guy, okay? I don't go crazy over it, but the way they handled it was appalling. Appalling Spawn, that's the Czech metal band I was forgetting. Yes, Appalling Spawn is also really good. And Krabathor, that's another one. So those are two more. Okay, so, yeah. Why are you so cute? Depends on who you ask. What's your favorite food? Czech chicken schnitzel. I love that stuff. I love going to my grandma's on Sundays and just devouring it. Top 10 players and top 10 advanced team builders. I might have to come back to this one. This one's long. I will come back to it, though. Hey, BKC, is laddering the best way to practice competitive Pokemon? Yeah. In terms of just getting a feel for the game and for your respective metagame, as well as just playing and sharpening your skills, yeah, definitely. An alternative to laddering is going on to Smog Tours and the server, smogtours.psim.us, and you just ask for battles in any tier, and very often you'll be able to get games with experienced players. So I would recommend that. You can have any condiment come out of your belly button. What is it and how do you dispense it? Barbecue sauce, and I dispense it for a profit. Yeah. Let's not beat around the bush. I don't like when... Let's just say what we mean. This question is asking, what Pokemon would you fuck? This is a heavy question, because I don't want to skirt around it, but at the same time, I don't know what the consequences are. So I'll just say I would be a gentleman to Gardevoir. I've said too much. Serious question, what can counter Mixed Ments in advance? My team is very weak to it. Mixed Ments is one of those Pokemon you don't counter directly most of the time. It's really hard to... Because look, the one true counter to it is Milotic. Milotic in Porygon 2 does pretty well too, but Porygon 2 can struggle with Brick Break if there are too many spikes up. But generally Milotic is really safe. So if you don't have Milotic, you are in some semblance of danger against Mixed Ments, especially with Sand, when your Suicune can't heal anymore, and Blissey too. Generally, you will have to play around it with the threat of ice moves, potential Rock Slide from Tyranitar when he's at high health, so he can live a Brick Break, and ice moves, and rock moves, and Toxic, or Status, or even just Leech Seeding it on the switch with Celebi can go a long way, because it doesn't heal in Sand. And then you can live a hit, because Ments doesn't OHKO that much. It 2 KOs a ton, but it doesn't OHKO that much, so you might have to eat a big hit. Other ways are pivoting into a faster poke, or a poke that takes very little damage, like Gengar into Brick Break is ideal. He can also come in on an HP Grass aimed at Swampert. It's like Swampert's a good initial switch, then you go to Gengar. Zapdos is a pretty good blanket check, especially Spadef variants, but you have to watch out because some of them run Rock Slide. And being forced to rest with the Spadef variant, Spadef Zapdos is potentially dangerous, lets in dangerous guys like Tyranitar. And offensive variants can't hit it too hard, although they can definitely ruin it with Thunder Wave. So that's the long answer. The short answer is you're gonna have to play around it. You're gonna have to pivot around its attacks and cripple it with a big attack or status. Best band of the 80s. A lot of ways this can go. Talking Heads would be one of my choices. If best or favorite, because among my favorite, there are a lot of great bands coming out in the 80s. Like My Bloody Valentine were doing things in the 80s, great things even. Because Isn't Anything, I think it was 89, and I sometimes prefer that to Loveless. But I wouldn't really call them an 80s band. There are other, like Merciful Fate and Slayer's output in the 80s was just unmatched. Swans is my favorite band overall, and they were doing a ton of great things in the 80s, so maybe them, but there's so many bands to consider for that. If the Heads were going on a decline, because Remain in Light came out in 80, and then after that, then their other stuff just wasn't as strong. Although they did have some great live stuff from then. I don't know, I think it's a tough call, but I'm going to probably give it to... I'll give it to Slayer, because they were really just untouchable back then. There were a lot of krautrock, shoegaze bands really taking off around that time, but they didn't really hit their... Well, I guess Can is another great option for that. Yeah, it's a tough call. It's something in the non-straight-ahead rock category, I think. Because Can and Talking Heads and things of that nature. Suicide had some great stuff come out then. Oh, Dead Kennedys maybe. Yeah, tough call. One of those, and Slayer. But yeah, Dead Kennedys were so many seminal bands coming out at that point. It's hard to say that any of them stand above everything else in every other genre. So I guess you would have to narrow it down a little, but my overall instinct is that Slayer, the Kennedys are my favorite because they have so much output over the course of the decade, and all of it is immensely good. If you could assign yourself a typing or two, which one would it be? Hard-hitting question. I don't know, fighting, because I'm always angry. And... I don't know, dark. Because I swear too much, and I like my Satan music. So, fighting dark, does that make me a Pangoro? No, Scrafty, actually. And Pangoro too, I think. I'll take Scrafty. What do you think of the newer gens compared to 1.5? Competitively, I think 6 and 7 are fine. Well, I'm more of a 6 guy than a 7 guy. 7's a good metagame, but has some stuff not as much to my taste. And 8 I don't have 8, I don't have much of an opinion, but I don't prefer it. I don't like to do gen bias, like X gen is bad, Y gen is good, because that's just usually a gen is not flawed in and of itself. It's more a player not really understanding it. Like, think about when a really old player who comes into Gen 7 or Gen 8 and starts telling everyone what's what, obviously that player doesn't know what they're talking about, and vice versa for a new player going into Gen 2 or Gen 3 and going, oh, come on, this is stupid. So I like to see gens as equal as possible, and the rest is just my preference, as opposed to really shitting on a gen. So I think they're still equal in terms of competition, because there's great players playing them. Is there stuff that could be changed? Yeah, but you could say that for every generation. That said, I think 6 is my favorite of the post-Gen 1.5 guys. Not sure if multiple questions are... yes, absolutely they are allowed. Would you consider more collabs either on your channel or another? Yeah, I mean, it's not like a weird thing to collab with Blunder or Joey for me, because I've known those guys for years. I've known Joey for a decade now. Jesus Christ. So, yeah, I mean, it's not something I really think about, but I'm sure I'm not opposed at all. I've never really talked with Jamvad, but it could definitely be an interesting discussion. I know he does more academic Pokemon stuff as well. He's even got a book, and I really admire that. So, yeah, sure. But I don't really think of... I like to do stuff on my own time, and, whenever someone's like, hey, can we do this at this time? I'm just like, oh, come on, leave me alone. Which is also why I don't like editing my videos. I want to just do it and get it done. Obviously, if the video asks for it, then yes, I will, but yeah. When you take up side metagames to play like Monotype, Battle Factory, etc., yeah, once I'm more retired from the more competitive side of things, because I'm still embroiled in that for the most part, but I'm weaning my way off. And yeah, I would like to take it more easy in Pokemon. I would love to do nothing but play DPP Little Cup and Black and White 2 RU and other fun stuff. And like the weird stuff, yeah, sure. Yeah. In the future. Are you even considering doing streaming like on Twitch or YouTube? Yeah, I've done streams on YouTube a couple times. And yeah, I mean, it's not something I would do regularly. I do have plans to do it in the future, like as a kind of fundraising thing for some projects. Like, I was planning to like play an entire Pokemon game start to finish, and all donations go to whatever I'm working on, and stuff like that. Or like laddering for X amount of hours, and same deal. And yeah, but I really should get a Twitch account started. I know. I think I have one. I just keep forgetting the password. I think it's like BKC666 or something, because I was being edgy when I made it. But yeah, I could, yeah, in the future, definitely. Once I figure out what I want to do with it. I have a lot of ideas for videos, and only so much time in the day, / patience with which to not go crazy. Do you think Torrentee would be okay to bring back down to Black and White 2 OU again after so much time has passed, considering Excadrill is back? No, absolutely not. I will fight Torrentee coming back to Black and White OU with every fiber of my being. Excadrill came back because it was no longer able to run Sandrush with Sandstorm. And even Sandrush alone was proven to be too much when used against Sand teams. So that's why Excadrill is okay. When Excadrill was originally banned, it wasn't able to run Sandforce or Moldbreaker. It was only Sandrush. It was all Sandrush. So it came back once people decided, hey, now that it has these abilities, what if we got rid of Sandrush? So there's a major difference. Torrentee is still the same incredibly broken Pokemon it was before. It's too fast. It has a regenerator. It's faster than Alakazam, for God's sake. And Alakazam's already blazing fast. It's too strong. Its regenerator, no, absolutely not. Even though there's no Dugtrio around, and Dugtrio made it really annoying, but no, absolutely not. Any other Ubers you would consider a suspect on to bring back to OU? No, absolutely not. Yeah, I think Black and White 2 has too many threats, as is, so definitely not a fan of bringing anything down. Like, even Landorus Incarnate, if you only let it use Sand Force instead of Sheer Force, I still wouldn't care for that, because, we have enough problems with threats, I feel. So, If I were to drop down one Pokemon from Ubers, it would be Kyurem White, just to take the plunge. Just fully nuke the tier. It wouldn't be a good idea at all, but that's what I would do. Glad you've been uploading more lately, enjoying the content. Use my favorite word. But yeah, thank you very much. I don't mind if you guys say the word content. I just... Whenever a YouTuber goes, I want to, help use this money to bring you guys more content, I'm just like, you sound fake as fuck. As opposed to me, I'm a paragon of being genuine and authenticity. Explain Sunny Day Magneton. It's not a Houndoom thing. It's just because sometimes you want to clear the weather for things like Snorlax and Heracross. Especially Salac Heracross, who often dies before it can sweep because it subs down to low health. And Sandstorm finishes it off. So see, even something like Protect Swampert can be used to check it. Yeah, Sunny Day or Rain Dance Magneton is just used to clear the weather because Tyranitar Sand is really oppressive, and it helps out stuff like Suicune too. Like Suicune and Snorlax are the two most sand-affected Pokemon in the tier. So getting rid of it, even potentially temporarily, can go a long way. And it's especially good because it's not like Magneton is scrapping for movesets, or moves. You can stick whatever on it, as long as you have Thunderbolt and Hidden Power. So, yeah, moving on. What's the most important tournament game you lost due to bad luck? I would hesitate to say I lost a game entirely to bad luck, because there's always some more you can do, but then again, at the same time, you can't... I don't know if you can really be expected to play absolutely perfectly in every game, just in case you get the shit lucked out of you. It's an ongoing debate, but... World Cup Finals 2016, I ended up missing a Fire Blast on a Breloom, which would have won us the entire tournament. That was pretty infuriating. Actually, no, that one was more my fault too, because I could have played better, but in World Cup, that same World Cups, the semifinals, that was really annoying because my, that one was worse, actually, because we were up 1-0, and this would have sent us to the finals, and it was against M-Dragon, and I missed 2 Fire Blasts with my Heatran, which turned it from getting a free kill and coming back to kill more and almost a certain win into dead for nothing. And then later in the game, I was still going to win almost surely, and then my Wish Calm Mind Jirachi, which was incredibly favored in a Calm Mind war, then it managed to lose to a Calm Mind Clefable, despite attacking, not only having Spadef drop chances, but attacking literally twice more. 28 attacks as opposed to 14 without a single crit, and he got his on the 14th, which was infuriating. And my Starmie got crit earlier in the game too, which made me have to sack it very quickly. So that was annoying, but yeah, that one was probably the most important, I guess. And it was due to luck, so I would say that one. What gave you the motivation, your journey in this game, to better yourself to the level where you're at right now? I don't know. Constant need to be the best at something I really care about. And I'm sure you could dig into this psychologically and be like, well, your father and whatnot. And I'm sure I'm positive there's some element to that. But in general, I just really wanted to, and I know there's also stuff like, if you compete too much, you're compensating for something. Which might, I don't know. What gave you that motivation? I just wanted to keep getting better and play against the best and prove I could hang with them. And if you want to go into why I was motivated to play against the best and prove I could hang with them, as opposed to just spectating them, then you would have to really sit down and get a diagnostic. If you run Blastburn, could you run Flamethrower with it? Yeah, you could, but then you would be lame instead of cool, because cool people run Fire Blast. And also, it's Blastburn Charizard, so you're already taking risks regardless. Yeah, I'm also 24 years old. Cool. It's a great age, isn't it? You're a legend. Thank you. Question. Dwight Schrute. Do you think any of the competitive formats will stand the test of time and still be popular years from now? And if you had to choose the one to be the most popular, which do you think it would be? Similar to how Melee has been able to be a popular format of Smash Bros. I think that the competitive OU formats from generations 1 through 4 have already stood the test of time. Look how old they are. Gen 4, the latest of these, is... Gen 4 ended 10 years ago this September. And it started even years before that. So I think it's already stood the test of time. It's still incredibly popular. Gen 3 is even older. Gen 2 and Gen 1, they're still popular. I think the most popular is going to be Gen 3 or Gen 4 just because they have the most similarities to later gen mechanics. And Gen 3 is known for its balance, and it's pretty easy to get into. So I think I would have to say Gen 3 with Gen 4 as a close second. Whereas Gen 1 and 2 are grindier, longer, not as appealing to as wide a variety of people. So, yeah, I would say definitely one of those. Also, more familiar Pokemon than what you're used to. They're more familiar in terms of Pokemon than the first two generations. Like in Gen 3 and 4, you've got your Tyrannitars and Skarmories and Jirachis, and you're like, all right, I know these Pokemon. Whereas in Gen 2, you've got your Miltanks and your defensive Cloysters and whatnot. So there's a mix, obviously, but yeah. All right, thoughts on Cloyster in Advance? Good Pokemon. Good Pokemon. Really annoying because it just dumps on Claydol, doesn't care about Magneton, switches in on a bunch of stuff, has Explosion. Good Pokemon. For sure. Has its flaws, of course, getting worn down quickly in sand and toxic, but yeah, it's a great poke and a cornerstone of many excellent teams. God, this question is still weighing on me. I don't know what gave me the motivation. I always knew I wanted to be better. I never at the beginning I didn't set out to be the single best because I was like, who can claim to be the single best? And then as I kept going, then I was like, yeah, I could do this, and some would say that's unhealthy, but yeah, I wanted to prove that I could be considered as among them. Yeah. Since you have the most trophy wins, do you see yourself as the best battler overall? No. I don't trust anyone's opinion about themselves. This goes both ways. This doesn't mean I don't trust anyone who thinks they're God's gift to Pokemon, but I also don't trust people who think, oh yeah, I'm the worst, I suck. Yeah, because it's, I think everyone has their strengths and non-strengths. And there are a lot of metrics by which to define what makes a player great. I think not just tournament success, which doesn't necessarily correlate to trophy wins, especially if you're in a team tournament. You could go 9-0 in the regular season of SPL, and it would mean nothing. That actually happened this past season of SPL. Twice, actually. And, yeah, 2 different players had that happen. And, they're not going to get any trophy out of it. But obviously I value trophies, too. So, I don't know. It's a balance. I think influence on the game is more important. And I think being able to really carve out your identity as a player is crucial because a lot of players can autopilot to decent success by just being given what's popular by their friends who are up to date with the metagame. But I think leaving your mark on the game makes you much more of a... I think it works a lot better. Like, look at someone like Husk. Husk never won an individual trophy, and he shaped the game so much from the way he played, so that's why people still remember him. He also had great tournament success, but even before he had that tournament success, then he was known for shaping the game. That more modern day Smogon's tournament success. So, yeah, it's a tough question for sure. The best Pokemon player thing. Like, some people have almost objectively wrong opinions on someone who was the best, and other people just, I don't know. It's tough. There's a whole thread about it, and yeah, so it's tough. This almost deserves its own video. But generally, I don't like when people have egos about themselves. Yeah, I don't enjoy that. So I would not want to call myself the best ever. That would be the height of arrogance. even if all the stats pointed to it, I could easily name a bunch of other guys who were just as good, in my mind. How to predict your Pokemon team, your opponent's team, by what Pokemon they've shown in advance. I always have problems with that. This also deserves its own video, pretty much. You have to know the metagame, and you have to take notice of how they've been playing. And that's the theory anyway. I'd have to demonstrate it in its own video. And it's tough. You will have to practice a lot. You will not be able to get it immediately. But that's natural. You know, if anyone could pick up Pokemon and instantly be good at it, then being good at it would not mean as much. So don't be discouraged. It's definitely, it's not an exact science, obviously, but you can definitely make reasonable assumptions. I think if you watch the videos I do when I ladder, then those are, or even the analysis videos where we break down what the lasts could be or what they should be, then those should give you an idea, because I break down what they need to be checking and how they've been playing so far. So I'll try to make a video dedicated to this, though. 4 questions for you. This is, when I saw this one, I was like, wow, this is genuinely the most hard-hitting question. So, thank you, the Pioneer. I've recently started laddering / playing DPP competitively. Do you honestly believe that the Smogon Forum / Runes of Alph has all the tools I need to compete at a tour, high level? No. No, because you will not be able to you won't be able to compete at a high level without practicing yourself. And as we went over in an earlier question, then the ladder is not the best place to do that. Runes of Alph will help you a lot, but again, watching the tournament replays, and more importantly, I have a video called How to Get into Smogon Tournaments, and you can reference that for where you can go for DPP seasonal stuff. Even if you don't feel like you're ready right now, or to play at a high level, I would just join the next DPP tournament you see in there. And just to get practice, what is there to lose? So I would play in those tournaments as much as possible. That will give you good experience. And once you start to succeed there, then you can start getting considered for that kind of stuff. You have to show you can, if you can get high in the ladder, that's great. I would do that. But the forums themselves, with the resources themselves, you are never, no matter what the tier, you are never going to be able to compete at a high level just by reading all the resources. I know it seems like Advanced, for example, has so many resources that you could become a metagame expert just by reading all of those, but you can't. You have to actually play the game. It has the tools to get you started, for sure. And Runes of Alph and the many, many replays from years and years of DPP, those are an incredible resource. When I was getting started, there was nothing like that. You had to just play the game, and there were Rate My Teams, which were more popular, but they, nothing to the extent of today, where every single high-level tournament match is on display. So you have all the tools you need. You're just going to have to use those to learn and then put that into practice on the ladder and in those circuit tournaments. And that is what will get you started on that path. If you have more questions, then I'm happy to answer. But that is the general idea. Use the forums, use the Runes of Alph resources, watch the tournament games, learn from them, try to understand them, play on the ladder, play in the smaller circuit tournaments. Those especially will help you a lot. Number 2, I heard that during team tourneys, a lot of people, whether they want to admit it or not, ghost each other. Care to share if that is true, / some stories you heard of competitive ghosting? Ghosting on Smogon has a longer history than I do. It's been around since before I joined. And yes, of course it has happened. There are some famous out in the open cases, and then there are the cases that everyone knows happened, but there was no proof, so nothing was done. And I don't want to, shit on anyone in a video like this where they're not around to defend themselves. 'Cause I don't think that's the way to do it. Yeah, so I'm going to say if you want to read about ghosting scandals, you just go through the tournament forums, look through the administrative decision posts, Snake Classic, and SPL and World Cup. There's a ton of them, so feel free to go through those, but I'm not going to slander anyone without them being able to defend themselves. Number 3, you're not known for your competitive play in newer gens, i.e. Oris, Ultra Sun and Moon, or Sword and Shield. Why haven't you impacted the newer gens like older gens? Well, I can answer this in terms of... I'll start with Sword and Shield. It's because I don't play it, and I've never really had interest in it. The extent of my playing it was laddering videos at the beginning of the generation, because, honestly, I wanted to grow the channel a little bit, so I was like, why not jump on this new stuff? And it worked, so... But in terms of the metagame, I just don't have interest in playing it. And even the official Smogon tournament thing, where I made it to round 3 before I was promptly dispatched by someone who actually played the tier, you know, that was for YouTube entertainment. And in terms of actually playing Sword and Shield, I have played all of one game that was not uploaded to YouTube. Or, sorry, 3 or 4. And, yeah, 3. The 2 games I lost in OST round 3, which I was recording, and then that got fucked up. Which sounds like an excuse, but I don't think it was very entertaining anyway. So, the replays are out there if you want to go look them up. And then I did one test game in SPL. So, that is why that. In terms of Ultra Sun and Moon, then I actually have impacted that tier. And I had a very bad snake draft last year, which I really regret joining. But before that, I think most people forget, I actually had some tournament success in Ultra Sun and Moon. And actually, the very first Sun and Moon tournament on Smogon in late 2016, early 2017, I made it to the finals of. Regretted not winning that one. But yeah, it was... Obviously, that's a long time ago. But then in Ultra Sun and Moon, just 2 years ago, I was put into tiebreaker in SPL semis, and that one worked out for me, and I played that one pretty well. And that was my first ever game of the tier, and then I had my first ever official tournament game of the tier, and then and then the following Snake, I went positive and I beat some good players. I also lost some good players, but you know, I had some good games, and I mean, it wasn't a great record, and I also happened to help shape the metagame a little bit because of the Rain team I built, and a couple of other things that I'm not really recalling right now. But mainly that Rain team, and whoops, this is from yesterday. So, but I didn't play it as much. I didn't play it regularly. And I would say that's probably the biggest reason why. I mean, I've made some teams, but nothing that, as much as that one Rain team that became the standard Rain for quite a while. So, but I just didn't play it as much. And I won a Smogon tour, a live tour in Ultra Sun and Moon just last spring. Actually, that was also on my birthday, or the night before my birthday, which was awesome. But yeah, it's so I have been able to succeed in the tier, and I made Smogon Tour playoffs as a result of that. So I have been able to succeed in that tier. It just I haven't played it as much, so people don't remember it as much. So, and of course my Snake was disastrous. I just hadn't played the metagame in a while and was in a bad headspace. Those aren't excuses. Those are reasons why I shouldn't have signed up. And, yeah. And that's pretty much it. In terms of Oris, then I have to disagree with this even more. Because I won a Smogon Tour with Oris. As a matter of fact, the deciding game for me to win that Smogon Tour was an Oris game, and I had won it in I went 3-1 in Oris in those playoffs. I lost it in round 1 and then won the final 3. This was the last Smogon Tour with DPP, and those playoffs I thought the first round was a disaster, and then the other 3 I thought I played really well. I made some really good teams too that were impactful on the metagame to boot. Hell, even back in XY, I remember I was the first person to run Focus Sash Diggersby, Spikes Greninja. There's even replay evidence of that, and Offensive Mega Venusaur, which some other people ended up using more, and I didn't really get to take the credit for that, but I never forgot. So that was XY, and then Oris I had various stuff. And it took me a while, and then that same SPL that I played the Sun and Moon tiebreaker in, then I played an Oris tiebreaker in the finals. So, yeah, I think I've definitely shown myself capable. And I've won an Oris Smoking Tour last year too, and I've definitely I've accumulated a lot of Oris points generally in Smoking Tour, so I've definitely shown myself capable of that. It's just not a generation I'm known for playing regularly, so I haven't impacted that one as much because I just don't play it as much. But I've definitely made some notable teams in Oris. And I feel like I'm bragging a little at this point, but at the same time, this question is kind of asking for me to toot my own horn with this. But yeah, for Ultra Sun and Moon and Sword and Shield, this one I didn't play as much, but when I did, then I did do little things, but it was never one of my main generations. And this one I haven't played at all, so that is why I haven't impacted them as much. Whereas the older gens, then I've done a good amount of stuff. God, I feel like an asshole just bragging about all the shit I've done. Sorry. Are there any players you can name who were Pokemon gods back in the day that quit or fell off the Mac that could have been top tier on Smoking today if they continued? Goki used to be considered one of the best, if not the best. Husk, Imperfect Luck, Panamaxis, a lot of the old Gen 4 guys, and from Gen 3, guys like Groudon 80, or Gene, or Majin Tupac Z, another advanced legend from Germany. I can name these all day. Crack, Dark Lucario, Zack 91 was another really good one. Yeah, there's pretty much an endless array of these kinds of players, but those are just some of them. So thank you for the hard-hitting question. 5 things you wish could be changed most on Smogon. 5? God, these listings I'm going to have to come back to because this is going to be long. Game time over T. How long do you think each generation takes to learn at a good level? I've been into Advanced for a couple weeks now, and just now it's starting to feel like I'm understanding it. I don't know. I can't give you an estimate. It'll take a while, but with all the resources out there, as long as you work at it, which I assume you're going to do because you're interested in it, you're never going to be able to do it overnight. That would be ridiculous. It's going to take some time, but at the same time, it's not going to take forever. So as long as you're constantly learning, and soaking up information, it should work. I can't give you a time frame estimate. Everyone's different, but it can. The tools are all there. What is your ideal SPL team using a current gen / old gen tier lineup? So I guess I'm just going to list my favorite player in each tier, huh? All right, let's see if I can do this. I'll just list the 8 generations of OU in one player. Sword and Shield, I'll go with Insult. He's been top tier. Sun and Moon, I'd go with Tricking. Oras, I'd go with ABR. Black and White, I'd go with Soulwind. DPP, I'd go with Philip 7086, for sure. Advance, I'd go with Ostamatidos. DPP actually might go with Ojama. Yeah, maybe. It's tough. Advance, I'd go with Ostamatidos. GSC, I'd go with... This is also a tough one. Lavos is a contender, but mostly I'm thinking Earthworm, because it's hard to not go with Earthworm. Conflict is another one. Just in general, because I'm a huge Earthworm fan, I will go with Earthworm. But the other guys are obviously good candidates. RBY, Troller, Marco ASD, Alexander, Pisone, Lush or GG fan. A lot of good answers. And I just realized I didn't add McMegan there either, and you could put him in Black and White or Advance, even GSC. So, a lot of great options. A lot of really great options. But that was my rough list. Prediction and thinking ahead are huge components of Pokemon. Could you speak to what makes good prediction and foresight and how some more inexperienced may think of prediction the wrong way? Yes. This probably also deserves its own video, but in short, an inexperienced player will just go off of gut feeling nonstop. It'll go, I think he's going to do this, so I'm going to predict that. Sometimes it'll work, and it'll look great, but sometimes it won't. Matter of fact, it will never work consistently. And what's more important is to consider your state of the game. Like, for example, he's going to predict me to switch, so he's going to use U-turn, so I'm going to stay in. Oh no, my Heatran died because I predicted wrong and he earthquaked. Now I lose to his Jirachi. So, if you're just going to try and predict him the whole time, then you might lose sight of what's really important. In terms of prediction, you don't want to ever just be guessing nonstop. Sometimes you're going to have to. That's just the nature of the game. Trying to figure out what your opponent's going to do. But generally, I would place much higher value on not trying to read your opponent consistently, because you'll never be able to do that to everyone, no matter how good you are. You might think you're a prediction genius, and then you'll face one guy who just makes you look silly. And that's why I think it's more important to play to your own strengths and to just focus on yourself and your own state in the game. So, good prediction is the kind that has a good balance of risk versus reward, or is used appropriately. Like, if you're super far behind, then you can't just play the game normally, or else you're going to lose regardless. Or if the risk versus reward is sufficient, like he's not going to leave the Skarmory in, otherwise he will just literally lose. Therefore, I can safely predict his switch, and I can gain the upside. So, risk versus reward is the simplest way to put it. As opposed to just, I feel like he's going to predict this, and that is all I'm going to base it on. State of the game, state of what is more important is more crucial to that. I mean, don't get me wrong, reading how your opponent plays is hella important. You will need to do that sometimes. You'll need to say, alright, he's been predicting like crazy, so I'm going to try and catch him with this. But you have to do more than just try and win prediction games, because that will never be consistent. How do you feel about Mega Z-moves and whatever the Gen 8 gimmick is called? Well, Gen 8's Dynamax is gone, because that was clearly absolutely ridiculous. I don't mind them. I don't mind Megas, in particular. The absurd ones get banned, and the rest are just good Pokemon. I think they even bring good qualities, because the move Knockoff was hilariously buffed in Gen 6, and with the base power boost and Steel not resisting Dark anymore, so that helps. And Z moves, if there is any positive to Z moves, it's also that they help with Knockoff. I think Z moves, of course, have a... I don't think Megas are as skewed as Z moves can be. I mean, Z moves can be potentially absolutely ridiculous, of course, but I don't like them, but I've come to recognize that they're here to stay, so gotta make your peace with that. I mean, no tier is perfect and ideal, so you just gotta make your peace with whatever it is and try to work around it. That said, I mean, I like what Z-moves can do sometimes. Other times, I don't like them as much, so I prefer Megas more, but I don't begrudge Z-moves just for existing. I think the abusers are more to target, like a Kartana or something. Any advice on staying consistent with your tournament performance? How do you manage your stress before and during important games? This is a great question. Staying consistent, it's hard. I mean, there are consistent players out there, but even the most consistent player you can name has had a bad tournament, or several. So, don't worry about not being perfect in every tournament. Both with the nature of how Pokemon can be, and the fact that we're all human. So, there's that. You just gotta play your own game to the best of your ability consistently. So you want to cultivate an environment where you're doing that. The stress thing is, I know the feeling. I know the feeling of, God, I just want to get the game started. But for me, the stress never really carried over into the actual game, because once the game starts, then I'm in it. So you just gotta keep going. So, I mean, obviously I've felt pressure in games before, like, oh my God, this turn is huge, and yada yada. But that one is less stressful to me than the wait before. And I know how it can be stressful, but you know what I would do? What I've been trying to do is don't let yourself enjoy other things before games. Like, if you got a big game coming up and you're stressing about it, you shouldn't be. I mean, obviously some pressure is normal. Being nervous before a big game, totally natural. But you can't just let yourself drown in that. Put on an episode of The Office if you're into that, or an episode of something you like, something short. Take yourself out of it a little. Just put some distance between yourself, and remember, this is a game you're playing for fun. And obviously you want to have some sort of edge. You want to be playing at your best, but you can't let the stress overwhelm you. There have been players who have been struggling with anxiety and nerves in their tournament performance for a while, and there's no perfect answer for everyone because it really depends on what you are as a person or how you are and what works for you. But I would just take it easy is the easiest way to say it, but just find what works for you to calm down. For me, it's just don't think about it that much. Try to be engaged in something else maybe. Just relax, have confidence in yourself that when the game comes, you will do fine. You will do your best, and that is all anyone can ask. As long as you're really trying your hardest, then that's the most anyone can ask of you. So, yeah, hopefully that helps the before part. I agree, the before part is just the harder one, but I think if you just take it slow, take it easy, don't stress it. I know it's easy. What's the solution to stress? Well, just don't stress. That's stupid, I know, but remember it's a game for fun. And what's the worst that happens? You lose? So, yeah, don't worry about that. I'm sorry, just try and get some perspective and, take the mood off, take the edge off with something funny. What are your thoughts on luck in general in competitive Pokemon? Some players have it more than others, that's for sure. But I mean, that's the nature of things, Am I okay with luck deciding games, or would I see it removed? I mean, I think we all would prefer that just luck was entirely removed, but you got to remember how much luck goes into every single turn. Like, every time you hit a 95% Ice Fang, that's luck. This is a good way to look at it. Once I was bitching about luck, as, every Pokemon player does. And my friend gave me some perspective on it. He was like, oh, I had a guaranteed win if Draco Meteor hit. And he was like, yeah, but Draco Meteor is 90% accuracy. Think about it like this. If you had 10 games where all you had to do was hit Draco Meteor to hit, do you deserve to win all those games? You deserve to win roughly 9 out of 10. So, I mean, it's dumb. And I don't know if it's a balancing thing. I'm not familiar with how other games do it. Like, do you need to have some sort of mix between perfect power and accuracy? Would Gengar be broken if it could hit Focus Blast on command? As an Alakazam too? And what does it say if you have to rely on a Pokemon missing to beat it? What's the difference between Focus Blast and Guillotine and stuff like that? But, I mean, I don't like to concern myself with irrelevant hypotheticals, and I don't mean this to sound dismissive. It's just yeah, I would like it if full para didn't exist, but it does, so I'm not going to really spend time thinking about what the game would be like if it didn't. I would much rather focus on something that I can actually use in the real world, so to speak. So, I don't know what I would ban. I mean, there's stupid things I think Thunderbolt full para is one of the dumbest things to exist. Or Thunderbolt para, rather. Especially Thunderbolt para, full para, just get rid of it. So I wouldn't mind it, but I mean, to remove all luck would just be to change how Pokemon works. And I wouldn't mind a game where crits don't exist and every move is 100% accurate and whatnot, and it's just pure managing your position as well as the odds. But as it is, then you have to be good at playing the odds. So that's just how it is, and I don't always like it, and I especially don't like it when I see it happen in ridiculous fashion, which is, as we all know as Pokemon players, Focus Blast really has less accuracy than, I don't know, Grass Whistle, but yeah, you gotta learn to be good at that. And high chance of happening always happen? I think the opposite would be bad, so no, I do not want that to happen. False Swipe, Scizor video, yep, that's me. I'm in every one of his descriptions since Kangaskhan or Flygon, so yeah. Just want to say love your uploads. Thank you very much. You ever feel like you really choke away a tournament game at the beginning of your tournament career? What do you mean beginning? Yes, I've choked away tournament games. all throughout the years. Literally every great tournament player has. There is not a tournament player out there who has not thrown the hell out of a one game in a tournament. So, I'm not really into self-humiliation, and I'm sure you can find these games without much trouble, but yes, absolutely, everyone has. So, yeah. Other content, do you play any games other than Pokemon or your favorite games out there? I have always been mostly just a Pokemon kid. Even when I was younger, I never played like Zelda and Fire Emblem and other stuff my friends were playing, or Mario. I mean, I've played like Mario Kart and stuff, but nothing I really felt the same degree of attachment to as Pokemon. So even now that I'm older and I see people get into League of Legends and Dota and whatever the newest thing is, Fortnite, I guess. Or like I never got to play Call of Duty or stuff like that, and I don't really miss it. So I was really into sports games for a while when I was a kid. And, they're fun to, mess around with, but I don't have the same... I really loved MVP Baseball 2005. That was the greatest game of all time. So I really like that one. But other than that, I don't really have attachment to much else. Like, I've dabbled in stuff like Castlevania, and it just didn't do as much for me. So I'm primarily a Pokemon guy. Question, what would you cut from Pokemon singles 6v6 battles? Me, Regenerator... Regenerator's a good one, but my answer is Scald. Scald is a horrible move that shouldn't exist. Absolutely should not. I even campaigned to get it banned, and powers that be would not have it so, but I hate Scald. I would ban it from every gen it exists in. Ridiculously stupid move. Anything that... And as soon as you say you need Scald to balance things, then I'm going to say if you need something to be balanced by another unhealthy element, then that first thing needs to be banned. So, like, if you're going to say you need Scald or else Ferrothorn and Toxapex are broken, then I'm just going to say, well, if you need to gamble on 30% to beat them, then that's probably a sign that there's a problem to begin with. I don't think there's a problem with them either way. Gainery, how do you feel about having the same name as one of the lead vocalists of REO Speedwagon? It wasn't intentional, I'm told. I was almost not named Kevin, but... Yes, I know what you mean. But, yeah, I'm not really a fan of their music, but cool. For anyone who's wondering what my name is and doesn't know, I'm not shy about it, but I'm not really giving it out in public, so I'll just say my last name has similarities to one of the most famously named Pokemon sets in history. That's all I'll say. This makes me so happy. Oh, I really like these comments when someone's really happy. Because I always believed Gen 3 was amazing, but I felt like perhaps it was just dumb nostalgia for my first game, Emerald. Pretty much everyone I've seen that started later or earlier hates Gen 3, or at least respects it less than I think would be reasonable. Came in for the Coliseum stuff, especially if compared to the shameless cash grab. Wow, this is a great comment. Thank you very much. Gen 3 is really good, both in-game and competitively. Many, many, many players who were around in that era, or even many players who go back to try it out, who started later, like myself, then they praise Gen 3 as a bastion of a balanced tier. Bastion? There are some words I've always only read and never really heard out loud. That's one of them. So, yeah, Gen 3 is excellent. I've not played Pokemon Conquest. I don't think I have ever had that's the one for the Wii, right? So I've never had a Wii, so... It looks interesting enough. Maybe I'll just skim through it on YouTube. I think right now if I were to play more Pokemon games besides the old ones I still have lying around, I played Emerald myself, and then Platinum again a couple months ago. I'm going to maybe go through Black and something else after my school stuff is more calmed down. But I think I'd be more into getting into like a Pokemon hack or something, and maybe even doing it on the channel. So I don't know if enough people would be interested in watching me do a Let's Play, because I don't really feel like doing the whole screaming every time someone says something or reading all the dialogue, and I don't know if that's a requirement, but who knows, it might be fun. Because I've never made it all the way through a Pokemon hack, like Reborn or Pyrite, is that the one where you start with Larvitar? Anyway, thank you. I found you through Fall Story Game because I remember being amazed at the Flygon video. Thank you very much. I remember that video, and I went after I wrote it, then he told me, this is really good, but you can't do this every week. This is way too long. So, yeah, and for anyone who wants to look up the False Swipe Flygon video, then I basically start it by going over the history of Sandstorm and Spikes in Gen 3 as a whole before going on to Flygon itself, and it's really long. But, yeah, I was proud of that one. What's your favorite part of each generation up to Gen 5? I really appreciate the position management in RBY. And it will really teach you to not only position yourself, but also really learn how to manage odds with crit rates and paralysis and whatnot. Gen 2, I really appreciate the meticulous feel of it in every aspect. It's very balanced. Gen 3 is a more extended version of that. Gen 4, I mean, I'm not really much of a variety guy per se. I think it's cool when you can use a lot of different Pokemon, but I'm more of a competitive kind of thing. Like, I wouldn't care if it's RBY and there's 12 viable Pokemon, or, I think that's even a good thing, potentially, less variance in that aspect, regardless. So, and yeah, Gen 4, I think that it's... I don't know, I appreciate it for similar reasons. I appreciate the various approaches that you can take while really focusing on yourself, as opposed to reacting purely to the opponent, whereas in Gen 2 and 3, you're not going to be able to out-offense things as well, so you got to have somewhat of a backbone most of the time, whereas in Gen 4, if you just purely play your own game, then you can still succeed. But at the same time, Gen 4 really takes a lot of immersion in the tier before you can understand it. It's not as easy to just get into an autopilot. I think Advanced and even GSC are more friendly to that. DPP is tougher, has more of a learning curve, but I see that as a good thing. And I will be right back, because I gotta go hit the bathroom again. So here's intermission number 2, and 45 to 60 more seconds of my diabolical ad time plan. Alright, so moving on. For Gen 5, my favorite part, it really teaches you how to handle Pokemon. Oh, shit. Yeah, Gen 5 really teaches you how to handle broken Pokemon. Because everything in there is really strong and really fast and really tough to deal with, so it really teaches you how to hang with some tough punches. So I think that's a good thing. Especially going into the later gens where that is especially prominent, like notably in Sun and Moon, where offense is just like this pyramid of wall breakers that's just getting faster and faster. So Gen 5 has a similar element. What advice would you give to someone who wants to play all generations of OU at a high level? Both playing and team building advice is appreciated. As always, study the successful players. Try to understand why what they do succeeds. And don't rush it. You have a ton of resources, but at the same time, you are not going to learn this overnight. And even if you're incredibly smart, it's just going to take you a while. What that while means may vary. It depends on just how you absorb stuff and how much time you're putting into it. But you're going to you're going to need to practice, of course. Learn and then practice. Learn from the forums and the replays of the resources you have out there, and then try to put it into practice yourself. And have patience, because if you're trying to learn all the generations of OU, it's not going to be easy. You can learn it at a surface level, for sure, and just like generally know this. Like, I can probably understand Sword and Shield at a surface level, but beyond that, then not much. And that's because I haven't invested any time into it. So you got to really dig into the tier, understand it for itself. Like, it took me a while to get that with Oris too. So, and I think that applies both playing and team building. So, again, study what works, really immerse yourself in the tier, and practice it yourself. There could be interesting aspects of psychology in this game, and I'm sure there could be a study done regarding it. Many different aspects of Pokemon and the environment we play it in, for sure. But in terms of using it to... In terms of using the psychology for your Pokemon benefits, then that one, I think, remains to be seen. I mean, some people will tell you about how they like to condition their opponents into thinking they're never going to do something, and that exists, but I'm not sure how much of that is psychology as much as just good. A good way to play the game. Maybe they intertwine, maybe there's a line to be drawn, who knows. We don't have the technology. I'm kidding, that was a Michael Scott quote. Alright, what are your favorite Pokemon in each old gen to use competitively? I think I answered this already. Did I answer it in each old gen? Did I forget? Oh yeah, I don't think I said it for Gen 4 and 5. So for Gen 4, I'm a big fan of various variants of Bronzong. Bronzong is really, really cool. Underrated poke. I've always loved Breloom. Breloom is really, really nasty. Well-played Infernape and Dragonite, and Lucario I also have. Emphasis on the well-played. I have a lot of respect for those too. And big props for pulling off Gyarados and Empoleon, and Mixed Flygon as well. And Scarf Metagross. And for Gen 5, then offensive Garchomp sets and Terrakion are just disgusting. I fear them very much. And various Garchomps, especially the mixed sets, Swords Dance, Stealth Rock, all of them are super good. And Terrakion too, flawed as they may be. I mean, Garchomp's less flawed than others, but yeah. And Keldeo I think is really disgusting. And Latios too, but they're just the broken ones. Keldeo, I don't know, it's tough. As well as various variants of, I always like Alakazam, so. But with Black and White, I feel there's less interesting ways to go through it. It's not as friendly to lesser used Pokemon, because the top Pokemon are so vicious. Based purely on design, my favorite Pokemon from each gen. Alright, this is going to be tough. Gen 1. Scyther. Yeah, I think it's got to be Scyther. Gen 2. I've always really liked Misdreavus. I remember playing Silver and running into one in Mount Silver and just going, whoa. It was like pain splitting, and I was just, yeah. Gen 3. God, this is tough to just do off the top of my head. I mean, Salamence is the easy pick, but I'm trying to think of something else. Oh, Walrein, maybe? Walrein's pretty awesome. And, I always really like Swellow. I was always a big fan of that one. Swellow, Gardevoir, Manectric, those are some of my favorites. Gen 4, I could be here forever. I'll just say that Vespiquen is awesome. I really like it. Floatzel too. Luxray and Staraptor, of course, those are the obligatory Gen 4 starter pantheon. And much, much more like Honchkrow and Mismagius and Magmortar and Hippowdon and even Perugly and Skuntank and Drapion. Oh, I love Drapion. So I'll just stop there. Gen 5, I have less attachment to, but Gen 5, I would say Crocodile. Crocodile is really cool. And then for Gen 6, it kind of loses me, but I don't even know if I could pick one for Gen 6. Conceptually, Aegislash is very cool. I will say that. Gen 7, I really like playing Gen 7 in-game. I like the starters. Incineroar and Primarina were really great. And Lycanroc is really cool. I would have to think about this one more, but I really like them. So, and then Gen 8, I don't think I have a favorite. I guess Corviknight is pretty cool. And Dragapult I don't hate, but I don't know enough about the rest. There were a couple of cool design ones, but I've just forgotten because I haven't played through the game. Try knockoff Alakazam, forcing special walls or Metagross to lose items can be valuable, assuming this is advanced. ZF had this idea before. I'm not a fan because Zam is not the kind of Pokemon that comes in and lasts throughout a game. If you're using Zam, you're not going for a long game. You're going for a quick win. So you're not going to really be able to make use of that knockoff because it's not going to be a longer game. And not to mention that Zam has enough trouble switching in safely as is. So maybe there could be some weird utility set for it, but definitely not an offensive knockoff Zam because it has enough move slot syndrome already, because you want Psychic, Fire, Grass, of course, and then you want to Calm Mind, but you also want Ice Punch and maybe even Thunder Punch, so it's tough. You also want Trick with Choice Band. It's very tricky, no pun intended, so it's a decent idea. Knockoff is always a great move, but tough to pull off. Who is the greatest band on the planet, and why is it Swans? I have been a huge fan of Swans, and they have been my favorite band for 3 years now, ever since I went to Brno to see them live, with a couple of Pokemon buddies, in fact. And they just blew me away with how tight they were live, and how the sound just envelops you. And I would definitely count myself in the top 5% of Swans fans. Well, maybe that's extreme. Swans fans are pretty dedicated, so maybe that's a high figure, but I have immersed myself in their discography. I would consider myself somewhat of an expert. And yeah, I think the way their sound is layered and cacophonous and ever building, and in terms of tension, and just I could go into superlatives for about a year, so I will just say they have done more for me than every other band out there. And The Seer is, if not the greatest album of all time, a top 3. I think that's their best for sure. To Be Kind is great, but The Seer just does so much more. The atmosphere is just drenched in atmosphere. This hellscape with light at the end of the tunnel, and just the release and the grooves they lock into are just monsters. They build from a ton of incredible influences. Everything from Can to Kraftwerk to Suicide to even James Brown to the Stooges. It is a wonder to behold. And I like my repetitive music, so I really like when they lock in and just push it forward and more and build on it and just keeps going. It's I don't know if it's my ideal type of music, but it's pretty up there, and I do love it very much. The Man Who Refused to Be Unhappy is incredible. Seeing that live, I felt it in my, inside me, and that's not being gross or any kind of innuendo. The vibrations are so powerful that they just take over your entire being. So seeing them live is just incredible. But even as a studio band, they do very challenging things, and really push themselves not to be content with both the past and what their preconceived notions of music might be. I mean, I know they're going to test most listeners' patience because, alright, when are they going to stop playing this one chord? But if you can really find yourself in it, then it will do so much for you. And I really love Swans. So, they have 3 different decades in which they're active. My recommended place to start is To Be Kind, because it's pretty accessible for all kinds of listeners. And from there, just go nuts. The Great Annihilator is another great one. Love of Life is good. Then they have the more challenging ones like Filth, just because it's so abrasive. Soundtracks for the Blind is really warped and weird, and The Glowing Man is more of a meditative experience. It's very slow, but I think the Seer just does everything. Also, check out their live stuff and turn the volume loud, really loud. Lastly, I really like White Light from the Mouth of Infinity. That's a great album. It's got a lot of folky stuff going on in there that endears itself to a wider variety of listeners. So that is why Swans is the greatest band on the planet. In very short summary, what makes you so fond of each old gen? Well, they weren't always old gens to me. You know, like every old gen used to just be OU. When I was playing in Gen 4, we didn't call it Gen 4 OU. We just called it OU. Like we said, who wants to play OU? Who wants to play UU? Because it was just Gen 4 UU. It was just UU, not Gen 4 UU. So, and then in Gen 5, same deal. It was just OU. And then, I got back in Gen 3, not because I really had a desire to, but because it wasn't Smogon Tour, and I really wanted to win Smogon Tour. So I got into it, and then I discovered I really liked it. And then I got into Gen 2 because I had to play it for a tournament, and I really liked that. Similar things with Gen 6 and Gen 1 and Gen 7. So, it's not that I'm fond of them because they're old gens. Which I realize the question may not have meant it that way, but to me, some of them just were originally generations I already liked, and then the others were just me looking for more metagames that I liked that were still played, because I love things like DBP UU and Black and White RU, but they're not played very often and at as high a level of competition, so I wanted to find those, and I really, really like them. Not because they're old and antiquated and because it gives you some sort of elite status, but just because I really enjoy them as metagames. And that's why I don't play Sword and Shield. From what I've played, I just don't enjoy it. So, that's the most important. So, you can play any generation of OU that you like and do well because of it. So, I've already gone over the favorite aspects of them and favorite Pokemon to use in competitive. I guess if I had to say one Pokemon across the generations that just transcends all of them, then Tyranitar or Skarmory. Probably Tyranitar, but Skarmory is a very close second. So, I also like Oris a lot because I haven't mentioned that yet, because it is sometimes it reminds me of GSC, weirdly enough. Just in the way you have to play around things in order to break cores and not get suffocated by passive damage, except it's of course got a lot more variety and explosiveness, but I really, really do like Oris for that. And SM is like a very extreme version of Oris. They have a lot of similarities. What's the dumbest set you've ever seen pulled off in Advanced OU? That is a great question. I don't know if I've ever seen like a truly idiotic set, like ever in Advance. Like in a tournament, you're never gonna see something dumb like name something ridiculous. But I've definitely lost to some stupid stuff on the ladder. Who hasn't? I guess. This is a really tough one. I don't know if I can even answer this accurately. It's probably something to do with Gengar, because people run all sorts of weird shit on Gengar. On the ladder, that is. Because, something like Tyranitar can run 4 special attacks and still be good. So, I don't know if... yeah, I'm not sure if I can really answer this one. Sorry. I'm pretty sure I've lost to like a Swords Dance Charizard before, but that might have been GSC. I just don't remember. It was GSC, I just don't remember if it carried on to Advance, so... I don't... pulled off implies that it actually worked, so... I can't really recall. Yeah, I don't know, like... yeah, I'm sorry, just can't think of anything. Yeah, I'm gonna end it there, or end that question there. Yep. Oh, thank you very much, Shinobi Warrior. Use a damage calc, cries and mobile showdown. Yep. Sorry. Use a laptop. I mean, there are some great players who play on phone, but it's so much easier. All right, now we said we were gonna go back to those other longer list things that I think there were two of them, maybe three. Oh, there's three, I think. Okay, things you wish could be changed most on Smogon. God. This is tough. I would say I want contributors to be paid because the owner of the site makes a lot of money. Like, it's not just a decent cut, it's very much making a living. And the contributors who make the site what it is don't get squat. So I think that should be changed. That's one thing. I think tournaments should embrace a model more suited to dealing with the variance you're inevitably going to get when you play Pokemon. So I'm talking seeding is a good idea, and double elimination. I think those are generally good ideas in most tournaments. I would also, and then number 3, I guess I'm going to cheat a little bit and say best of 3 in team tournaments. I think it's definitely a good idea, but I recognize that's not going to happen. But then again, I don't think any of these are going to happen. So, yeah, it's just more, if you want people to contribute, you got to pay them because they do a lot of work, a lot of grueling, thankless work, and they deserve to be compensated when the owner is making so much money. And I think the tournament models should be looked at and seriously considered for change. Is there anything else? Because on Smogon, I assume that just means like site-wise. In terms of like culture, then I guess I would want a little more self-sufficiency instead of just players knowing they could get by, taking the easiest way and just jacking teams and succeeding with them rather than trying to carve out their own personality and leaving their own impact on the game. I mean, on one hand, it's the competitive move to choose the best team for the job, but there's also an element of laziness and getting away with it that I don't care for. And general politeness. I don't like the Smog Tours mentality of jeering at people who are playing tournament games. I think it's really nasty. And generally, Smogon seems to be more about the freak show, the clown display, than actual discussion of the game, which I don't care for. It feels like it focuses more on shit-talking and humiliation than, the game, which the game is the primary reason I'm here for. So it feels lame to see people willfully misunderstand things just for the sake of getting a one-up in terms of being able to shit on someone. So, like, if someone makes a good play and then gets hacked and then gets ridiculed for it, I can't stand seeing shit like that. And it's very commonplace. It's not my ideal scenario, so I think that's 4, the self-sufficiency as opposed to, hey, give me your team, especially right after you lost a tournament game. Or, hey, endlessly give me teams, the most up-to-date team, so I can be up-to-date with the metagame without doing any work myself. I don't like that. I don't think you only can use your own team. That's ridiculous, but I think you should be able to put some work into it. I don't know. It's tough. And then, of course, the clown show factor. I don't like how people playing tournaments feel like they're on display for the entertainment of the screaming masses who just want to make everything as loud and obnoxious as possible. So that's 4. I can't really think of a 4th thing. Those are my main gripes. I also don't like the way the Smogon site is run in terms of... Oh yeah, that's a 5th. I don't like when people who don't play Pokemon decide the Pokemon tiers for those who do play. That's horrible. That is the worst. Absolutely the worst. Yeah, alright, moving on. Where's the next one? Tops and advanced players, top and advanced team builders. Wow, that's tough. What was the first long one? Oh, I think it was just this other one. I'll just do one more check to make sure that there's nothing else I'm skipping over. Those 5 things. Ideal SPL team. Okay, I think it's just this last one. Cool. Top 3 favorite. No, I went over all these, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, okay, so I think this is the last one. Right now we're at 66 comments, I believe, so I'm going to refresh just to make sure we're not missing anything that's been asked in the last 2 hours, although I doubt it. 66, okay. So, top 10 advanced players and top 10 advanced team builders. Okay, this is hard because this question is kind of the test of time, because I don't think you can't just jump onto the scene and immediately be in the conversation. I think you have to have. I don't want to gatekeep someone, but I just think there is some semblance of it is relevant to just be able to maintain some sort of impact on the tier and the metagame over the course of more than just one tournament, because a flash in the pan kind of players who just kind of jump in, jump out, then they don't affect the game as much, I feel. I mean, some of them do, but yeah. So, in terms of top, we'll go with the top team builders first. Okay. All right, we're gonna go to PokePaste. And alright, this is alright, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, because I don't have those. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 1, 2, 3. Granted, I might just make this its own video in the future that would be more researched or more considered, because right now I'm just kind of listing notable players. So team building, and I don't think I can order these at all, but yeah. The first thing you do is you put Astamatitos in both. Whoops, I am losing my shit here. Alright, Astamatitos, the linear curve, linear curve, whoops, okay, Ojama is another one, McMegan is another one. In terms of playing, now is where you get hard, because you're going to leave people off inevitably, which is going to be tough. I'm going to put Undisputed here as well. I'm going to put Undisputed here too. He's had some very important teams over the years. I'm going to say Dexa has also made some very important teams. Honestly, maybe you kind of include both, because I feel like both the players on here are all great builders too. So, Ojama, again, not ordering, McMegan, Dexa. Oh, I already put Undisputed. So, there's some that might go in playing that might not be in team building, but I don't think it would be vice versa. I don't think there's someone who's so known for their advanced team building that they would make the spot. I mean, some people might say Osgood, and I think Osgood's advanced teams are great, but I don't think they have been as plentiful and as impactful. I know someone like Triangles would disagree with me. So Team building. Dexa used to be up on this up here play-wise too, so I might give it to him. I might take him off because he hasn't played as seriously as recently. Golden Sun is another one. Triangles is another option. I think I might put him here. Then there are other guys like Cowboy Dan who could be considered. But it's tough because they are not as overall accomplished. You know, we're looking more in the consistency. We're looking more for consistency overall, so. This is my rough approximation. This is judging over the last, let's say over the last 7 years when I started, last 9 years, I think, because there was Advance before that in the Net Battle era, where guys like Gene and Goofball and Vil and Husk and IPL were top tier players, but Advance has come a long way since then. So I would definitely include them on a best, of all time kind of thing, but we can't really quantify their results as clearly. You know what? When I make that video, the top 10, whatever, then, or the most impactful advanced players, then I would consult with others and discuss that kind of thing. Like, there's others like Loki as well who could be considered, but this is more of a modern kind of thing. So, also this team building thing I don't think is ordered. It's definitely not. I just wanted to have 10. This one is also not as ordered. I'm definitely forgetting people because I've been yammering for 2 hours now. Triangles is very possibly there. Although I think I'm not so sure. Like some people might say, well, what about Zalmog? And I would say Zalmog he's on his way, but he's just getting started. He hasn't had that much of an impact. He's just had the one good tournament so far. Like other guys like Fear would be here in the past, but he hasn't been playing Advance in more recent years, so. Let's see, who else's teams do I like? Oh, Markop could be here. If we're, kind of feel. Oh, UD, obviously. Super obviously UD. I think UD, especially team-wise. And UD is. I mean, Dexa has also been slumping more as of late, but they've got the historical results to back them up, for sure. And then. Markop, definitely in terms of playing. I don't know, it's tough. I'm sifting through just so I leave off as little as possible. ZF, I would really like. A lot of ZF teams are really good, so I would probably put him there. Fakes is another really good player. You could put guys like him in there. Danilo actually has shaped very much of the metagame, so I kind of want to put him there. I don't know, this is a tough one. This is really tough. So please don't take this as gospel. This is just me giving a very rushed answer to a very complex question. M-Dragon. See, I forgot M-Dragon. That's how. So yeah, I would probably have to put M-Dragon in here somewhere. So, yeah, I do want to make this a video, so then Danilo, yeah. See, I want to put M-Dragon in the playing thing, too. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So, alright, this is a very difficult question, and I am definitely inspired to make this its own video, but for now, we are going to close here, because these are all the questions. So we're going to refresh one more time to see if any new ones popped up, much as I doubt it. And then we are going to wrap it up. Alright, thank you guys for all these questions. This was very fun to do. and I can do them more in the future if you guys would like. Just, ask me stuff that hasn't been asked before. I won't do them weekly or anything, but, I can, if I'm ever feeling lazy, because this is a video everyone can enjoy, and it's not a lot of work for me to do. I mean, I say that, but I've been yammering for almost 2.25 hours, so, but then again, I didn't have to put that much thought into it. Anyway, I'm back to go working on my bigger projects, such as the new project that this comment inspired, so thank you. Alright, thanks guys, I will catch you next time.